and welcome back to my small little library. Today we're going to talk about the books I read in July, which was by far the worst month for getting through my physical TBR because the only game that I actually read from my physical TBR was one. I read 8 books in total and only one was from my physical TBR, which is kind of abysmal when it comes to getting through my physical TBR, but it happens, and so yeah, here we are. Let's talk about all of the books that I read over the past month. And yeah, actually, I had kind of a good reading month. It's just not, as many books from my physical TBR as I should have. So the first book that I read in July was a reread of Shards of Earth by Adrian Tchaikovsky, and this is actually a book that has gone up in rating while it's doing a reread, which is a first time for me, I think. This is the first book in the Architects series, and the Architects are alien kind of beings who are as big as moons, and they rearrange other planets like architects design houses. And whilst doing that, they obviously kill a lot of people, and this book is about Earth and the people that lived on Earth, and yeah, the architects coming back because there was a big war. They vanished after an encounter, and now they are back, and problems are arising, and there is a lot of different, like, aliens, stuff like that, humans. Our crew is really mixed when it comes to that. It's a really, really interesting book, and I originally gave it 4 stars, but doing a reread, I actually upped it to 5 stars because reading through it a second time, it felt like the characters from our crew felt pretty unique, which was something I haven't had in like a really, really long time. Like, a lot of books I read in the last month felt like pretty cliche-ish. When it comes to characters, like a lot of the more modern books, I feel like, especially YA books, often feel cliche-ish in their character descriptions. These ones had really interesting pasts, even traumatic pasts, but not like, the useless, she was assaulted kind of traumatic past, but like being used by the government or being actually born to serve your government and being put on ice when you aren't useful anymore, stuff like that. So yeah, for this reason alone, this book really stood out to me, and it just really dawned on me reading through it a second time that I was really impressed with the characters. So I actually upped it to 5-star read, and I'm really, really happy with this book. After that, we had to obviously go to a bad book because, you can't read good books the whole month. Yeah, the bad book was Genesis by Karen Slaughter. I gave this 2 stars. I found the book to be rather average, and then there was like a pretty grayish sex scene in there that could be interpreted in like a pretty abusive way, which I did, and I did not like that. I think it didn't really do anything for the story. I don't like the main character. This is a book from the Will Trent series, which is also a TV series now. But yeah, I didn't enjoy the characters. I also couldn't get into the TV show, but that doesn't mean anything for me. But yeah, I don't know. I think the main character is weird. The female characters in here seem pretty over the top, hysteric, which I hate as a word, but I feel like for this book, it like kind of fits some of the characters. And yeah, then combined with this weird sex scene, I was out. So I gave it 2 stars because the thriller plot is pretty average thriller plot. But I feel like you can go out and like pick any other thriller from the shelves and have a better time with that. So yeah, I would not recommend this, but I feel like it's not a bad writing style. It's just, I don't like the concept of the story, the parts of the story really. There was also, the beginning was like a really long description of this couple, and their involvement in the story was that they nearly killed a crime victim that ran onto the street in front of their car, and like we had this really weird mother-in-law speech from the woman in the car, and she felt like one of those am I the asshole posts on Reddit. It was really weird. Yeah, I would recommend to read like the first part of the book and then stop. Yeah. Going from there, I picked up a short novel from my library, which is called Home. habitat range niche territory, which is the 4.5 part of the Murderbot series. I didn't know that existed until my library recommended it to me. It was great. I gave it 5 stars. I think it's really hard to rate those like really, really small stories. I think that had like 20 pages, 30 pages, so it was like a really, really short story. But I really like the little bit of context it gives to the rest of the series. It's just like a really, really small snippet of interaction between crew members and, or like one crew member exactly, and it was really interesting and I really liked it, and so I decided to just give it 5 stars because why not? I enjoyed reading it. I think it obviously makes a lot more sense to read it between book 4 and 5. I didn't do that because I didn't know it existed. So yeah, if you haven't read the Murderbot series yet and you do want to, just remember that there's one book, like one short novel in between book 4 and 5. Then I did a re-listen to A Taste for Poison by Neil Bradbury, a true crime book that I enjoy so much. It is a true crime book primarily focused on women because of the poisoning, because women tend to use poison a lot more. And it just explains where the chemicals come from, how they are used, why a lot of them are just your typical like chemicals that are used in society. Insulin, for example, is one that was used to kill somebody, and how you differentiate between like normal uses and being a useful thing, and then also being able to kill people with that, and what happened, the cases, a lot of scientific explanation between the poisons, what was done, the mechanics of it all. Really, really interesting book, which I think gives a good contrast to other true crime books because the focus isn't really on what happened. It's more so on how did they use the thing to poison the other one, which I found to be really, really interesting. Then I listened to the best horror book ever as an audiobook. If you've watched the vlogs, you will know. I listened to The Haar by David Sodergren. I hope that is pronounced correctly. It is a horror story that plays out in a Scottish remote village, and the main character is this little old lady who lives in this remote village with like a couple of other elderly couples. The younger people have gone away and kind of left the whole village to kind of slowly trickle out, if you want. And there's this American rich guy who wants to buy all of the real estate there and build a golf course. And our leading lady isn't happy with that. And the Har also isn't happy with that. If you don't know, which I didn't know, the Har is this fog that comes from the sea and comes inland, which like is like a pretty thick fog, and the horrors start from there, and it is brilliant. You need to listen to the audiobook. The audiobook narrator has a really lovely accent. She sounds so wonderful, and then her having this like really nice voice and describing these really gory details of the story. It was just brilliant. It was brilliant. It was a really gory story. You have to be prepared for that. You do get quite intense descriptions of the horror. I really liked it. The setting was brilliant. I kind of like the rich American golf building guy as like the villain of the story. Of like him using his money to get people to do what he wants, stuff like that. You know, you have these really typical themes for the book, and then just this old lady, and I love her so much. It's a brilliant book. You should listen to it if you haven't yet. If you like gory horror stories, obviously. If you don't bother with it. But the audiobook narrator does narrate romance novels. So if you like romance novels, which I think they were more like these like Regency romance novels, I don't really know about that because I don't read them, but she does also narrate them. So look up, I will put her name here because she's brilliant, the audiobook narrator. Look her up if you like other books maybe that she has narrated, but her voice is heavenly. She has an amazing voice. After I listened to The Har, I finally tackled the biggest read of the month, and that is The Way of Kings part 1 and part 2. I gave this 5 stars again. It was a reread to prepare myself to read the next book in the series. I do really like the books. I think they are too long. I think that is a fair assessment. I mean, this is one book, both of these. I don't even know how many pages there would be, but it would be way over 1,000. I think it's too long. I personally dislike this drawn out fantasy, but the story is great. I love Culloden's story. I love Shallon's story. The third one, which I still don't remember the name of, let me look it up. Dalina's story, I'm partial to. It's not bad, but I don't love it as much as I love the story of the other two. So yeah, it's pretty like, I want to say standard epic fantasy, if you know what I mean. You know, it's Brandon Sanderson epic fantasy, but it's a lot more theoretical, political than Mistborn. Even though Mistborn is heavily political, I feel like The Way of Kings is much slower, even though there is a lot of fighting in there. But because of Shallon's story and partly Dalina's story are pretty heavily talking, more like slower stuff. I feel like the story feels pretty slow, at least for me. And then the books being so massive, obviously, it's not ideal in my opinion, but I still think it is absolutely worth it. I still think it's a brilliant fantasy story. It's a really interesting world. We have obviously really different stories between the 3 main characters because they play really different roles in society. So I think it gives you like a really good look into the different aspects of society in this book. So that is really good. It's just for me personally, I think they're too long. I'm still giving them 5 stars because I'm not letting that stop me. And then we have the last book, which I actually finished yesterday, and that is called Severance by Ling Ma. This was really interesting. I found the audiobook on the library. It sounded really interesting. It's a book about a virus that comes from China. But it comes to New York. Our main character works at this book firm in Manhattan, in New York, and the virus comes and our main character kind of doesn't know what to do, so she continues going to work. She's Gen Z, and the whole book is describing her past, her coming of age, then her working at the company, and then once she lives through the virus because she's one of the survivors, her getting picked up by a group with really weird and evil leader, and what happens from then on out. The problem is, like, the book begins really interesting. It's a cool concept of a story. For me personally, her past self and her current self read like 2 different people, which I found really hard to combine into one person. Like, I get that people change. I changed a lot over the years, but for me they felt really, really different as people. And then the zombies are so boring, and I get that the whole book is kind of a commentary on consumerism and the way society is going and evolving and the burnout we are all experiencing and the hopelessness and stuff like that. I get that that is what the book wants to convey somehow, but the book is so boring. It's such a boring story. I don't get it. I don't know how you can make a zombie apocalypse, because the people turn to zombies who just keep doing the same things. Like, they are kind of like stuck in this trot, and then they fall apart, kind of. They hurt themselves, they have open wounds, and they just keep on going, keep on going. So I get the commentary behind it. I just don't think it's a good book, to be honest. I think it's a pretty boring book. I think there could have been a better way to tell the story. Yeah, I'm really sorry. So I gave it 2 stars because in the end I just wasn't impressed. I just really liked the premise of the book, but not the way the story was done in the end. So yeah, don't know what else to say about the book. It's just, I think it's kind of worth a listen, and I think a lot of people will probably like it, but for me it was so much of a contemporary novel that kind of the zombies felt so weirdly inserted into the book, and then this like super religious leader that she joins this group, like, and it's just really weird from that point on. I don't know. I just wasn't impressed in the end. But it was interesting to like go out of my comfort zone a little bit and try out something a little bit different. So yeah, those are the 8 books I read in July. I would say there was a pretty good reading month actually, but mostly because it was rereads of books I knew I would love. So I don't know. It kind of feels like cheating. But yeah, the next month we will have a lot more like new reads and not rereads for me. But yeah, I did really enjoy the month of reading, and I think it was like a really good month to have, especially since work was really taxing. So having a lot of like rereads was a little bit easy on me. So yeah, if you've read any of these books and have an opinion you want to share, please do that in the comments below. I love hearing your opinions about the books that I read, because getting the opinions of others is always a good way to reflect on your own opinions, and I do like to do that. So yeah, thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope I will see you in the next video. Bye!